There's a woman in my neighborhood, and every time I see her, she has something nasty to say to me. She has some sort of way of putting me down, and it really, really, really bothers me. In fact, I've been finding, like over the past few months, that every time I see this woman, and every time I have some sort of unpleasant, put downy kind of interaction with this woman, it takes me days to recover from it. For days, I'm like reeling from like how bad this woman makes me feel about myself. And I couldn't really understand why. I couldn't understand why this woman, she makes me feel like I'm like this like little girl. I'm like 3 years old, and someone's like hitting me with a baseball bat, you know. And I couldn't understand why. I'm like a mother. I'm a mother of a large family. I'm married. I have a website. I am a grown up. I am not 3 years old anymore. I'm not 7 years old. I'm not 11 years old. I'm a grown up. I'm a Jewish mom. But it's a weird thing that every time I interact with this woman, then I just feel like, again, like I'm just like a little girl, like cowering from her. So I didn't like, for months I have not understood my reaction, my totally over the top reaction to this woman. I sort of thought, you know, Rabbi Niven, my teacher, Rabbi Niven of the personal development Chaboras, so he frequently talks about something called baggage points. That everyone has something called baggage points, which means certain situations that just bring out that bring out sort of like a disproportionately negative reaction to what happened. Something will happen and it will remind you of a trauma that you went through, or something difficult, or a childhood experience or something. And so, like, just, you know, if you're totally reacting in a totally out of proportion way, you know, okay, it's my baggage point. But I didn't really understand what baggage points are until I read something very interesting this past Shabbat. And it's sort of an interesting source of information about psychology. There is, in Family First magazine. Family First magazine is the women's magazine of Mishpacha. And for like the past year, then one second, Riva Pomerantz. Okay, Riva Pomerantz has been writing a story in weekly installments called Diamond Dust. And I had actually never read it until last week, but then I was noticing that the letters to the editor over like the past few months, about a quarter to a third of them are reactions, sort of like very emotional reactions to Diamond Dust and to the characters and what they're doing and and so I thought, well, this must be a really interesting kind of story if it's getting so many, if it's provoking so much controversy in the letters to the editor. So I decided last week to start reading, and now I'm also hooked. So I'm also reading what's happening. So this past Shabbat was my second week reading. So just to give you like a background of what's happening. So the main character in Diamond Dust is a woman named Yali. And Yali, when she was a very little girl, then she went to school and she was bullied terribly, very, very cruelly by one other girl in the class. So then when Yali's a little bit older, she moves to Atlanta with her family, and she decides she's going to recreate herself. And she's beautiful and popular and put together, and everything's great until then she grows up. She's married. She's Yali. She's put together. She's popular. She's everything. And then like a series of sort of traumatic things happen. So in the story, she just gave birth to a baby with a cleft lip. So, you know, medically having a cleft lip isn't something so terrible. It's something that can quite easily be taken care of with surgery. But Yali has a totally crazy reaction. Her reaction is she starts having panic attacks, and she decides she's not gonna, like, she's not gonna take the baby home. The sister-in-law's gonna take the baby. Her reaction is just totally because it turns out that this baby, this sort of, let's say, quote-unquote imperfect baby, reminds her of her traumatic past, being bullied somehow. Okay, so basically, Yali in this week then she meets with a psychologist named Miriam Brown. Miriam Brown explains to her what's happening to her, and so I found this explanation actually very helpful for me and my own personal, you know, grown-up woman acting like a scared child kind of reaction. Okay. So the psychologist says, "I think I can explain what's going on," Miriam said. "Let me put it this way." She held out her hand. "Do you mind if I touch you for a second?" Yali shrugged. Miriam tapped her lightly on the wrist. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much did that just hurt you? Yali gave her a blank look. 0. Okay, suppose, God forbid, that yesterday you fell and broke your hand, and now I do just what I did to your wrist. How much would it hurt? Miriam grinned. Probably a 20, right? But what's the difference? What's the difference? I tapped you in exactly the same way. She paused, waiting for the light of awareness to flicker in those whirling blue eyes. Sure enough, Yali gave a brief, knowing smile. Obviously, Yali said, it would hurt like crazy because the wrist was already sore. You can see where I'm going with this. Just like in your body, if something's already hurting you and you tap it or hit it, the pain is really intense. So too, when we have difficult experiences, sometimes our brain doesn't fully get over it. There's a part that's still hurting. We're created, Baruch Hashem, strong and full of coping mechanisms, so the rest of the parts of our mind are able to move on from the difficult experience and put it behind us. In fact, those healthy coping parts are trying so hard to help us avoid the difficult memories that they create a psychological barrier to protect our conscious, functioning self from having to tolerate those emotions. The downside is that the part of the mind that is still holding and remembering the traumatic experience stays stuck in the feelings of that experience. Like, do you understand? So, like, a part of our mind is still stuck in that experience, in that traumatic experience, and everything's fine and dandy until something happens that triggers that part of the brain to remember how it felt to go through that experience. This triggered memory can be so strong that it can feel as if we are reliving some part of the experience that's actually happening now, even though the other parts of our brain know it's not true. Are you with me? Yali's eyes are moist. Her nod was heartfelt this time. Another important point is, when this part is activated, it has an effect on what we call the self-concept. That is the belief system that defines and organizes everything people believe about themselves. Our self-concept is like the lens that our mind looks through as we go through life. So the beliefs that light up or are evoked in a particular situation, or even by a memory of a situation, have a strong effect on our emotional reactions. Well, we're all walking around with some beliefs about ourselves that we sort of logically know aren't true, but we've come to feel are sometimes true. These false and damaging self-beliefs are actually another way to look at the sore spots that I was telling you about before. I've worked with other clients who have suffered through traumatic experiences that are similar to yours, Yali, and I've discovered that when reminded of their trauma, many of them feel things about themselves like, I'm worthless, I'm a piece of dirt, nobody likes me, I'm not lovable. Even though they know logically that these things are not true. Miriam's voice was a caress. The dam burst. Yali shook with sobs. And then there's the emotional piece, where the feelings come in like a tsunami, in this flood that is so overwhelming that it crowds out everything else. Exactly, Yali sniffed. So basically, it goes on for a while more, but what Miriam Brown suggests is she suggests to Yali that when you're in a situation where you're totally having a baggage point, like a totally over-the-top reaction, because something difficult reminds you of some sort of traumatic event that you've had in the past, traumatic experience you've had in the past, that you need to do something to remind yourself that you're a grown-up. So something that she suggests is she suggests to look at your wedding and engagement ring, to look at your hand. Remember, I'm not like a bullied child anymore. I'm not a person who's going through it. I'm not like a teenager in some sort of traumatic experience. I'm a grown-up. I'm married. Or she suggests like other things. She suggests, splashing cold water in your face, or going outside in like the cold air, something to sort of something that can get you out of this sort of like feeling that you're in the traumatic experience again. So you can realize, like, get back to yourself and say, no, like, I'm a Jewish mom, like, I'm not like in this, I'm not like a child in this traumatic experience. So I thought this really opened my eyes to my own experience, because I realized that when this woman, when she puts me down, so once again, I'm 8 years old. And what happened when I was 8 years old? When I was 8 years old, I transferred to a local public school, to a sort of like upper middle class kind of prep school, kind of snooty prep school, and I really didn't fit in. I so didn't fit in that not only did the popular kids make fun of me, the not popular kids, like all like the not popular kids, they would make fun of me too. So I was like so miserable and so bullied and so treated terribly that I would like on a regular basis I would go to like the nurses station and I would like try and hold my breath. I had an idea that if I held my breath, then my temperature would go up, just to feign illness, anything, so that I would get sent home. So Baruch Hashem, so like fourth grade was difficult, fifth grade was difficult, sixth grade already, Baruch Hashem, I was like firmly in the unpopular crowd, but at least I had a crowd, you know. And by ninth grade I was already like doing well and things. Everyone had grown up and things were a lot better. But I realized that when this woman puts me down, I'm back again. I'm 8 years old. I'm the new student at friend school. I'm trying to like figure out how to survive socially, and I'm just like drowning. Like no one to protect me, no one to help me. Just I'm totally helpless. So so this past Shabbat, right after I read this story, something interesting happened. I guess like Hashem like sort of set things up this way that I went to a shul kiddush, and who was there but the woman. And this woman, she didn't talk to me, but she just gives me this really sour look, like this really nasty look, and like I'm sort of like, ah! You know, and I went to like run away, like run out of the kiddush, and then like I looked down and I looked at my wedding ring and I thought, you know, I'm not 8 years old anymore. I'm married. You know, I have a husband who loves me, Baruch Hashem. I have, you know, a bunch of kids. I'm a grown-up. I'm 41 years old. You know, I'm not the social reject at friend's school anymore. And it actually really helped. It really helped to pull me, to make me feel strong. And I was upset at that moment, but it didn't go on for like hours and days as like the past past interactions with this woman had. So I want to bless all of you moms. I think probably almost all human beings have baggage points. You know, situations which remind us of traumatic, difficult situations which we've experienced in the past, and bring out like a really sort of over the top, disproportionate negative reaction in us. So when you're going through your own personal baggage point, whatever it might be, I want to bless all of you that bless all of us, including myself, that we should remember to love ourselves and be patient with ourselves and have mercy upon ourselves for our idiosyncrasies and weaknesses. And to remember, you know, you're a Jewish mom. You're a powerful person. You're a Jewish mom. Hashem loves you. So everything's going to be okay. I want to bless all of you with an amazing, amazing week.